My name is David. At the time of my father's death in 2016, I was 59 years old. My older sister Sonia was 69 years old. Given our age difference, we were never particularly close as siblings. I don't think that this was anyone's fault in particular. I was, after all, only just starting out in year 2, what you Yanks would call first grade, when she was off to university. As the years passed, I usually only saw her at family meals over the Christmas holidays and Easter. After 3 years away at university, Sonia graduated and took a job as a Saga holiday representative. 13 years after Sonia took a job in the hospitality sector, I graduated from university with a chemical engineering degree. Given our age difference and our disparate career choices, the passing years did not bring us any closer. Our father, Gerald, was 92 when he lost his battle to leukemia. He had been in hospital in Oxfordshire for 5 months. At the time of our father's passing, I had not seen him for 53 days. Our estrangement was not the result of my personal choice, but was instead orchestrated by my sister, Sonia. I vividly remember the occasion of our last visit. It occurred on the morning of the 15th of October. As I approached our father's room, I could hear my sister's shrill and agitated voice echoing off the walls. She was reeling off a list of wild and completely absurd accusations about me and my wife, Julie. She told our father that I was a violent man who assaulted women. She claimed that I controlled a ring of prostitutes. That allegedly included my wife, Julie. In addition to being a pimp who lived off immoral earnings, Sonia further claimed that I was a thief and that I had forced my way into our father's home where I had stolen an assortment of family heirlooms. I had allegedly done this while looking for information about the PIN numbers for our father's bank accounts. She even claimed that the local constabulary were aware of this crime and that she had received a police report of this incident. These accusations made me feel as though I was in an episode of The Twilight Zone where real me had somehow stepped into some sort of parallel world where I was a completely different person. For the record, I am not now and have never been any sort of criminal. As I have previously mentioned, I was a chemical engineer. I used my skills and professional knowledge to work at a nuclear power plant. Due to the security clearances that were needed to hold such a job, not only had I undergone a thorough security vetting process prior to the time of my initial employment, but I had to be revetted every 7 to 10 years. If I had been any sort of criminal, I could never have held my job. Although the accusations being uttered by my sister were completely ludicrous, when I initially confronted her in my father's room, the ensuing row brought staffers running. "You're a thieving fing bastard," shrieked my sister. She then dramatically threw herself in front of our father's bed, playing the role of his guardian to the hilt. As I argued with her, I could hear his heart monitor increase its rate of beeping. As security ordered me out of the room, my last sight of our father was that of a vulnerable, frail, and utterly terrified old man. Since Sonia held a health and welfare LPA, lasting power of attorney, not only did she use her legal authority to have me removed from hospital, but I was also removed from our father's list of approved contacts. Her legal authority was such that my calls would not be forwarded to his room. Letters mailed to my father were also presumably intercepted. Unbeknownst to me at the time, Sonia brought in a trainee legal executive who subsequently drafted what would become our father's last will and testament. Given my sister's defamation, I was disappointed but not entirely surprised when I learned that she had inherited the entirety of our father's £1 million estate whilst I was excluded. Had Sonia not convinced our father to write a will, the law of intestacy would have applied. This law would have divided his estate among his surviving relatives, which in this case consisted of Sonia and myself. What was far more distressing than the loss of inheritance was the fact that my father had passed believing that I had been a terrible human being. My sister's contempt for me was such that after my father passed on the 7th of December in 2016, she used the authority of her lasting power of attorney to keep the hospital staff from telling me about our father's death. I missed our father's funeral and the reading of his will. 2 months would pass before I would even learn of my father's death. I subsequently learned that I had been left out of the inheritance for reasons of estrangement. Sonia's betrayal, her defamation, and her outright manipulation in eliminating me as a claimant for our father's will was simply too much to ignore. I needed to set the record straight, not just for me, but for the memory of our father. I decided to contact a solicitor and to pursue a case against my sister for defamation as well as her willful and blatant interference in excluding me from our father's will. I spent days researching reputable firms, reading reviews, and making calls. I finally found Royds with a King LLP, a law practice that specialized in family disputes and inheritance issues. As I sat down with a solicitor named Charles, I felt a glimmer of hope that justice might finally be within reach. The attorney listened attentively as I recounted the events that had unfolded. He took meticulous notes, interrupting occasionally to ask for clarification. He subsequently explained the legal grounds for a defamation case and the complexities involved in contesting the will. We discussed the importance of gathering documentation and any potential eyewitnesses who could corroborate my story. I spent weeks collecting every piece of evidence I could find. I obtained a copy of my father's last will and testament. I obtained a hospital record that documented my frequent visits to my father until Sonia ended my visitation rights. I reached out to former colleagues and family friends who could attest to my character. At the hospital, I was able to find staff who could provide eyewitness testimony as to the nature of my relationship with my father before Sonia banned all contact. Had this been the extent of my evidence, I could very well have lost the case. Since I would be suing my sister under the doctrine of fraudulent calumny, I had to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that Sonia had made false statements about me to our father with the intent of influencing him to exclude or to reduce my inheritance. In other words, I had to prove that she had poisoned his mind at the time that he recorded his will. The legal bar for doing this was so high that only 2 cases in recent years had ever been successful. It is fortunate that I was able to gather substantially more evidence. Under the Data Protection Act, I was able to request and receive documentation regarding all of the vetting that had taken place for my security clearance during the decades I had spent whilst employed as a nuclear engineer. This documentation made it very clear that I did not have a criminal background. To further support this evidence, I obtained a police clearance certificate. This was a legal form from the Thames Valley Police stating that I was a citizen with good conduct who did not have a criminal background. This report made it very clear that despite Sonia's claim that I had forced my way into our father's house, I had never been the subject of any police investigation. Each piece of evidence felt like a small victory in what would soon become a larger battle. As the court date approached, I was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Given the value of inheritance, the case would be heard by the High Court, a superior court that stood above the Crown Court for any civil case that was in excess of £100,000. On the day of our hearing, the courtroom buzzed with whispers as people settled into their seats. I sat beside my solicitor, feeling the weight of the moment. The defense, representing Sonia, opened by attempting to paint me as an estranged son, claiming that my father had intentionally left me out of the will due to our lack of any relationship. Sonia's solicitor then reiterated the false accusations that my sister had made, trying to cast doubt upon my character. I was alleged to be a pimp who ran a network of prostitutes that included my wife. I was alleged to have violently forced my way into my father's home, where I was said to have stolen several family heirlooms while searching for information about my father's financial accounts. Although the solicitor for the defense spoke with measured and solemn tones, he had no evidence to support his case. Even though Sonia had told our father that she had a police report regarding my criminal behavior, she could not submit this report as evidence because this incident had never occurred. When questioned about this in the witness box, Sonia's response was nearly incoherent. She stammered that she had believed her allegations to be true. After the defense rested, my solicitor stood with quiet confidence. He began by methodically dismantling the defense's narrative. These disclosure and barring service certificates prove that neither David nor his wife have ever been involved in any type of illegality, declared my attorney. After entering this documentation into record, my solicitor summoned the legal executive who had drafted our father's will. This witness testified that he had been told by Sonia that I was psychotic and that I had previously stolen large sums of money. As the case unfolded, I glanced at Sonia from across the courtroom. Her expression was a mixture of defiance and growing discomfort. Each revelation seemed to chip away the facade of the outraged, protective daughter that she was pretending to be. As this veneer was stripped away, she was revealed as being a manipulative and conniving liar. At the end of the trial, Judge Woodburn addressed the court. His words were deliberate and measured. He acknowledged the emotional complexity of the case and the burden of proof required to overturn a will. He spoke of the evidence that demonstrated Sonia's undue influence over my father. He also recounted the defamatory nature of her accusations, which included prostitution, violence against women, breaking and entering, and theft. The judge declared the will to be invalid. He further described Sonia's behavior as being disgraceful and completely appalling. Had my sister not tried to steal this inheritance, we could have split our father's £1 million estate 50-50. As it was, the entirety of the estate came to me. From the moment the verdict was announced, paparazzi hounded my sister. To this day, I don't know why Sonia chose to behave this way. Did she do this only for the money, or did she hate me as well? I know that I earned at least 3 to 4 times what Sonia made. If this was about money, we could have talked things out. There was no reason to smear my reputation, nor was there any reason for her to drag my wife into this sordid mess. As it is, her choices destroyed our relationship. Given the value of the estate and the extent of her defamation, the newspapers reviled her. The story of our court trial was picked up by the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, and the Guardian. Since my case was only the third such case since 2014 to overturn a will on the basis of fraudulent calumny, this case has been much studied by legal scholars and law students. Have you ever had your reputation dragged through the mud as I did? What would you have done if you had been in my situation? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Some people have told me that I should forgive my sister. Oscar Wilde once wrote, "After a good dinner, one can forgive anybody, even one's own relations." As a result of Sonia's behavior, our father went to his grave, thinking the worst of me. In contrast to Oscar Wilde, George Herbert once observed, "The best revenge is living well." Julie and I were already secure in our retirement when Sonia chose to steal our father's inheritance. As a result of Sonia's choices, we are now substantially better off. In the end, family does not have to be limited to those whom you are genetically related to as an accident of birth. Family can also be those people whom you have chosen to let into your life. You do not need to be alone, unless, of course, you have chosen to follow a reclusive lifestyle.
Oh, gather round, ye sayers bold, a tale I've got to tell, of Whittle Beetle, where the Lord had cast its spell, in the courts of old England, where justice sails the sea. A sister's words of calumny, her brother's fate did decree. Heave ho, the winds do blow, the gavel strikes the mast. In the case of Whittle, the truth did out at last. Fraudulent calumny, the judge did see, the will was cast away. In the court's deep sea, the truth set free, justice won the day. Old Gerald Whittle sailed away beyond the earthly tide. His will was forged by poison pen, his son was cast aside. But David stood with courage strong, his honor to defend, against the lies that Sonia spun right to the bitter end. Heave ho, the winds do blow, the gavel strikes the mast. In the case of Whittle, the truth did out at last. Fraudulent calumny, the judge did see, the will was cast away. In the court's deep sea, the truth set free, justice won the day. The court did find the sister's tale was false as stormy seas. Her words were naught but tempest lies meant to deceive with ease. The judge declared the will undone, the rightful course to chart, and David's name was cleared at last with truth in every part. Heave ho, the winds do blow, the gavel strikes the mast. In the case of Whittle, the truth did out at last. Fraudulent calumny, the judge did see, the will was cast away. In the court's deep sea, the truth set free. Justice won the day. So let this be a lesson, lads, as you sail the legal sea, that truth and justice, like the tide, will always set you free. For in the tale of Whittle's fight we see the law's fair hand, a testament to justice true across this noble land. Heave ho, the winds do blow, the gavel strikes the mast. In the case of a widow, the whittle, the truth did out at last. Fraudulent calumny, the judge did see, the will was cast away. In the court's deep sea, the truth set free. Justice won the day.